Beyond the buzzer, inside the game, this is Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
And the weekend is here. Glad you're here with us. Larry Smith joining, also producer Tony, editor Josh. Getting into the weekend here, it's we've been talking before about the calendar, how we go right from Final Four weekend and then right into golf, and after that we'll start. Next week starts NBA playoffs. Baseball is ongoing. So many things happening. We're going to talk a couple of different sports right here. Joining us here in a couple of minutes, someone we have not talked with before, but looking forward to a great conversation. Stephen Bulpett is a veteran journalist. He covers the Boston Celtics. Some great stories with him. I talk about this Celtics team that really, one of the great surprises in the NBA this year, considering the injury to Jayson Tatum. We thought he'd be out for the full year. He has not. He's come back strong. It's always, we have seen that before with Achilles injuries. Kobe Bryant many years ago, the late Kobe Bryant did that. Some others, but boy, he's come back in a fantastic way. And the difference that has made, how the Celtics have been able to win without him, and now keep winning with inserting him back into the lineup and the rotation. So we'll talk about that here in a minute. Also, NFL, we're still a couple of weeks away from the draft. Ray Fittipaldo joining us from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette talking Steelers as they begin the era post-Mike Tomlin, getting ready to set their roster here for 2026. Funny, the same question is, all last year waiting for Aaron Rodgers. They're still waiting for Aaron Rodgers in that. So anyway, that's on the way too. Some great stuff. Great guest next week as well. We're working with Mike DeCourcy to get him back on to talk about this college basketball season that just passed. A lot of portal news out there. We'll get into that here in just a bit. A lot of things happening right now. A couple of quick thoughts before we get to Stephen. WNBA, the new CBA is in place, and now the dollar is about to be spent. Mark it down. League history. First $1 million player. It is, drumroll please, Jackie Young, re-signing with the Las Vegas Aces, gets the max deal, about $1.19 million. How will this affect the WNBA? Either way, is a great thing for these women to get what they deserve. Remember, this is, the max deal before was like $250,000, and now it's like 1.5. So the Aces, look, they do well at the box office. They do well in ticket sales. Obviously, 3 championships here in 4 years. We expect that Asia Wilson, the 4-time MVP, we talked earlier this week, likely will also get a max deal for 1.5. There is a salary cap, so you can't spend all of it, but these two deserve it as one of the top 2 players in the entire league. So it was kind of interesting to see some of the mocks, by the way, WNBA, with the new 2 expansion teams coming in Toronto and Portland, that they now have 15 teams. When they had just 12 a couple years ago. It's kind of strange. We talked about portal news earlier. Last year, some 5,600 men's basketball players in Division One. As of today, already 1,500 have entered the portal. So about 40% of the players, kind of crazy. Michigan reloading. The first team that started 5 transfers to win a title just added J.P. Estrella to the team from Tennessee. 6'10" power forward, has 2 years remaining. Could they start 5 transfers again? It's possible. They have also, the reports are, agreed to a deal with Elliot Cadeau, who is the most outstanding player, has 1 year left remaining. He was 2 years in North Carolina, his junior year at Michigan. He has agreed to a deal to come back. So for a team that's expected to lose, a day could leave. Lindenborg, we know, is gone. Maurice Johnson Jr. could leave. At least you now have 2 starters in place and 1 from the championship year. Does money buy wins in Major League Baseball? That's a pretty good question as we get started here, week 3 of the season. The answer seems to be no. Of the top 10 payroll teams, only 2 lead their division right now. And again, it is early. The Yankees and the Dodgers. The other 4 division leaders come in. Texas is at 15th, Milwaukee 20th, Cleveland 29th, Miami 30th. By the way, the combined record of the top 10 in payroll so far is 64-60. Our thanks to producer Tony for doing that research for us. Expect the unexpected at Augusta. We talked yesterday about no cell phones. How about this from the first round on Thursday? Xander Schauffele, tee shot on the 8th hole, got away from him just a bit, trailed out of bounds on the left side of the fairway, landing right in the middle of one patron's merchandise bag from the master store. Good news is that he was able to just get a free drop once they found the ball and managed to save par for the hole. Join right now. Let's talk a little NBA playoffs as we're getting ready for that here. Hard to believe we're at the end of the regular season already. Listen, let me tell you, in the commercial break, we had more fun with our next guest than we usually do. Because here's the thing: when you get a bunch of and listen, we're not going to date this guy, but we've already told you, producer Tony and I, we're pretty old. But you get some guys that are kind of long in the tooth in this business, and you get us in the same room or the same Zoom together, whatever the case is. It's always entertaining. Anyway, joining us right now, Steve Bulpett. He is a longtime NBA writer, columnist, and joining us now. Talk a little Boston Celtics. Stephen, welcome to the show. Good to see you.
Good to see you guys.
Hey, let's talk these Boston Celtics right now. First off, I love what Detroit has done. Obviously the Spurs, a big story, coming of age, but I think the Boston Celtics are the best story this year in terms of having the injury to Jayson Tatum. He comes back early, but boy, they stayed right there in the mix all the way through, and they're now entering the playoffs as a serious contender to get out of the East.
Yeah, I think, best story, that's someone else to judge, but I think certainly the most surprising story of those up in the top level. I think the basic expectation coming in was, play in perhaps, but there's going to be a step back. You're removing 4 rotation players. You're elevating your 4th string center to starter. And you're without, one of your 2 best players for potentially the entire season. Not exactly, as you're sitting in the kitchen, not exactly the recipe for success.
No question. So what did they do? How did they do it with all of those pieces, those things you just mentioned? What's the secret sauce here?
Well, clearly Jaylen Brown stepped up in terms of becoming the magnetic scorer. He'd always had, he'd had big scoring games, but that was when the focus of a defense had to at least be shaded elsewhere, part of the time anyway. So could he be that kind of scorer when he was clearly the focus of each defense that would come in? And he managed that. Not only, he knew he was going to give you quantity, but when he was able to give you quality as well. And I'm not saying that he would, it wasn't good, but quality when you're seeing a defense that's more geared to stop you, that's infinitely more difficult than his job was in previous years. So that's number one. Number two is the complementary pieces were given really good reign. Sam Hauser, you're a starter now. When you get the ball and you've got an open shot or something you think is open, fire it up. There was no second guessing people's shots. And then, I don't think it's possible to underestimate to overestimate what Neemias Queta has done for them in the middle. This guy, I'm not sure he's getting the kind of recognition for it or the buzz for it, but I think he's clearly the most improved player. He'd have to be, going from 4th string center to starting center on a likely number 2 seed in the East. Mm-hmm. And looking at his numbers, and not just what the numerical side of him, but the non-stat things, sealing your guy, things like that, opening the lane for others, defensive, not only the blocks, which are quantifiable, but the scares, So, yeah, they've had a lot of complementary pieces. And you've also got Derek White, who was really growing into a star in his own role. This year, it was, I think, a little more difficult for him to kind of find his spot because last year he was getting a lot of open shots because you had those other 2 guys. Now, people weren't leaving him so quickly, which was funny. It kind of hurt his numbers percentage-wise, but all of a sudden Peyton Pritchard, who says he's 6 feet, but I don't know. He winds up with open shots, So it's like, do you have guys who are willing to share it? Do you have guys that are bright enough to figure out where the openings are going to be? seeking them out, finding the soft spots in the defense, and then kind of playing for each other around the clear leader in Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one thing I want to get to with Jaylen Brown is Tatum is out. What I guess it was late May during the playoffs. So we're thinking, you know what, he's done for the year, maybe back for the playoffs, but he came back much sooner. I think it's a testament to Brown that he just welcomed him back in. And it was a very, watching from the outside, it felt like a very seamless transition to add him back in. And that's not always easy when you've played several months without, even though a player with Tatum's caliber, to add him back in. That's not easy for a team.
No, but you're saying, that Jaylen Brown welcomed back. I think it was on Jayson, not incumbent upon him, but I think he was the one that came in, and he's been playing. It would seem like, he's taking a step back and being more of a complementary role, but I think that's what makes him great, and it's what won him a championship a couple of years ago. Is not that he has to quote unquote defer to anybody, but when he's part of the wheel, part of the machine that works, that it's almost like an unguardable team. Because if guys are going ISO, then defenses are going to load up to him, load up to whoever has the ball. The shot clock winds down. You're taking your attempts later in the clock, not much chance for other opportunities, etc. You're not making the defense work as much. But now you look and see him coming back with these big assist numbers. And, when a team that's got this many shooters on it is moving the ball, even on a possession that you don't score, there's still a value in that because you're making the defense work. You're putting the defense in scramble. And, that's, to me, is what has made him, even more valuable this year than when he was putting up, the wild numbers.
Yeah. I think of the two teams that suffered. There were several players that went out with Achilles last year, Dame Lillard and in Milwaukee, of course, obviously Tyrese Halliburton later in the playoffs with Indiana. And you see just how these franchises, what happened after that. Indiana goes to the finals. They've got a shot at winning until Halliburton goes down. Indiana goes in the tank. They could not have had a worse season. And yet Boston is right there. So it's amazing to see kind of how that has done. Tell me about Boston and all the 3-pointers. They just shoot. Are they still shooting threes? I know they've got it earlier. I think there was some games I've seen. Correct me if I'm wrong. They shot like 63 pointers. How does that work for them in their offense?
Well, bottom line is they're shooting fewer now.
They're shooting fewer. Okay.
Oh yeah. It's clearly definable that they're going for that less, but that is part of their offense. It's like, hard work and math. I think that's like their basic mantra. And they give you more points when you shoot out there. But yeah, no, and that's been the one of the wild parts about Keita being such a big part, because in Joe Mazzulla's offenses, he likes to have a big man who can stretch the floor. You picture Al Horford out there, and certainly Kristaps Porzingis stretching the floor, opening up the middle. But Keita is not exactly a 3-point threat, but he's still, they still manage to spread things. Interestingly, Nikola Vucevic, who they acquired, he's just coming back, but he's a kind of guy that can do that stretch thing. But yeah, fewer threes now because you've got Jaylen Brown going to the bucket a lot more. And also guys like Sam Hauser, who, like, there were times you thought he might be allergic to the paint, but he's beating closeouts now, and he's getting into the mid-range, and I think even more in the last few weeks, realizing how valuable that. I think he went to the free throw line like 4 games in a row, and he'd never ever done that in his NBA career. I'm not sure if he did it in middle school or not. But yeah, they've altered things based on what they have on the floor, but they're still going to try to move the ball, and they'll put them up quicker than a lot of other teams will. If Peyton Pritchard gets like an eyelash of opening, it's going up.
Yeah. Well, let's look ahead here to the playoffs. Boston in the 2 spot, Detroit ahead of them. The Pistons have had a great season. If things go chalk, this is your Eastern Conference Finals. Talk us through how the Celtics team matches up with Detroit and what they would need to do to win that series if it comes to that.
It'd be an interesting series. I assume that the Bruins will be out of the NHL playoffs by then. But if it's Boston and if it's the Celtics and Pistons, we will have hockey at TD Garden. The Pistons will make sure that that there is an element of slap shot involved here. Now that'd be an interesting series because of the difference in styles. The Celtics like to be physical. The Pistons, I think, in breakfast line, they're going to give you an elbow. And for some of us who, as you said earlier, a little bit long in the tooth, just called me old. I can't believe you did that. But you recall?
Not you.
Yeah, I started on the beat when I was 7. So yeah, let's get that. I think it'll recall some of the old Celtics Pistons of the 80s, which was a lot of fun in a lot of ways. I still in touch with a lot of those Pistons guys, and they look upon it fondly as they chalk up their elbows,
Right, exactly. Well, tell me about this. Looking back at your career, and we won't get into the dates or how long, what was the favorite moment for you as a journalist in your career that was most rewarding?
I think more about, look, value of I think it's, it'd be hard pressed to find someone whose job is less important in the overall sense than what I've been doing for the last none of your damn business years. But so, I tell you the basketball score, big deal. But doing a story like when someone like Danny Fortson trusts me to tell the story about his dyslexia, back at a time where we're a lot more enlightened now. But back then, people didn't realize that it was a common and not a big deal thing. And it carried a stigma back then. And to be able for him to trust me to write the story, and fortunately for me to find a way early in the story to take the stigma out, getting letters from parents who got kids say, hey, my kid used to get picked on, but now there's this big tough guy. You can point to him that he's got dyslexia, as if all these geniuses from history weren't enough. Stuff like that is the things that I look back on and say, okay, on that day, maybe I didn't suck so bad,
Well, I was asking as we were talking off air and now going through here as we're on air. I just was at the Final Four last week, and it was my 13th Final Four, and just getting a chance to reconnect with some people I had not seen for a number of years. And I talked about, this was one Seth Davis. It was 29 years ago this weekend that I helped him with his first TV assignment, and now he's made millions in TV. So just I think, I don't know about you, the relationships and you begin to start to look back a little bit as I approach 40 years doing this. So anyway, thought it was interesting to ask. Listen, Stephen, we've taken up enough of your time, man. It's been entertaining, and I hope you'll find time to join us again as we get deeper here in these playoffs. Hopefully this wasn't a waste of your time either.
No worries at all, guys.
Awesome. Hey, thanks so much. Enjoy the ride. We appreciate it. Stephen Bulpett joining us once again, NBA writer and columnist covering the Boston Celtics. Again, in my opinion, one of the great stories as they begin to another quest to the NBA Finals and possibly another championship there in Boston. Okay, much more to come with this right here. Stay with us. Those old golf clubs sitting in your garage right now, there's a good chance they're worth real money. That driver you replaced, those irons you upgraded, even that putter collecting dust. Golf Roots lets you trade them in for cash or credit toward your next set. And right now, Sports IQ listeners get exclusive offers. Take $20 off any order over $100 with code SIQSALE, or get a 15% bonus on your trade-in value with code SIQTRADE-IN. That means the clubs in your garage could be worth even more. Golf Roots is on a mission to make golf more accessible, offering high-quality, pre-owned name brand clubs for every skill level. And if you're just starting out, the Just the Roots starter set is one of the most affordable ways to begin, with full trade-in credit when you're ready to upgrade. So don't let your old gear sit there losing value. Go to golfroots.com and see how you can start or upgrade your golf journey today. Use code SIQSALE for $20 off or SIQ Trade-In for 15% extra when you trade in your old clubs. That's golfroots.com. Golf Roots. Upgrade smarter.
You're listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
All right, great stuff there from Steve, and really enjoying talking to him. In fact, it was funny. We actually talked to him. We just finished about 10 seconds ago. Like we talked the entire break, as we've got. Again, I'm not saying I'm not going to date him. He kind of dated himself. Well, you get a chance to run into somebody who's done this a long time, like we have. You have a lot in common and a lot of similar people. So great to have Steven on. Hopefully he'll join us again a bit later. This interesting story we saw on USA Today sports.com this morning. The African-American population of Major League Baseball is back on the upswing. It had fallen down to 5.7% in 2024. That was the lowest since 1955. Think about our country's racial climate in 1955. That's where we were in baseball. 6% last year, 6.5% on opening day this year. And so, again, the diversity there. There's so many programs MLB has in place to try to get more young African-American boys in there. Another thing, too, that they have an issue is right now is keeping interest in the sport. I come from a small rural town in Illinois where baseball was king. All growing up. I mean, they once in the 50s and 60s had a minor league baseball team there. They were proudly said that a town of 20,000, 2,000 kids were involved in baseball or softball. They don't even have Little League anymore. Like, they couldn't even field 4 teams. The parents who gave their money in, they just refunded it. And that was years ago. So, good for Major League Baseball getting all kids involved, and especially trying to keep the diversity up. Certainly, it's a good thing, too. Speaking of trying to change things for the better, the NBA and some reporting right now in several places about Commissioner Adam Silver trying to solve the problem of teams tanking to get a better position in the draft lottery. Now, for those of you who don't know, this has gone through how they disperse new players has gone through several iterations over the years. Back in the day, they had actually there was a territorial thing. So, if you were in that area, and I'm not going to try to quote, I don't know exactly how it went, but basically, college players they would try to keep in the same area as a pro team and try to get fans to go follow that player. That makes sense. And then, of course, later it was a coin flip. The famous coin flip in 1979 between the Los Angeles Lakers and the Chicago Bulls. The Lakers won the coin flip, and they drafted Magic Johnson, number 1. The Bulls lost the coin flip, and they drafted David Greenwood out of UCLA, number 2. Guess which team that worked out for? Yeah, you already know. Then later on, teams trying to tank, they brought in the lottery, and that was in the mid-'80s. Patrick Ewing. I think he might have been the last non-lottery, the first. I don't recall. But anyway, the lottery comes in, and it was weighted to where they didn't have just a couple of teams. They said basically, as we've had recently, any non-playoff team would go into the lottery, but it's weighted to where the worse record you have, the higher percentage, more ping pong balls you have in the mix to try to get the number 1 pick. Well, obviously, we've heard a lot about the tanking this year. The league fining several teams. Utah Jazz fined $500,000 for not fielding a competitive team, like intentionally trying to get worse to improve their position in the lottery. Well, they're talking now. Adam Silver's talking about changing all of this, and not only including the non-playoff teams, but even the play-in teams. So those teams that get the play-in, get a couple of extra games. And may not make the playoffs. Well, they would go from, up to 18 teams, right, as part of this, and then not weighted. And there's another possibility of even saying that you can't get a top 4 pick in consecutive years. So trying to find a way to make this more competitive. It's really too bad that it's come down to this. But look, the league has to do this for the integrity. Why are you spending, you've seen ticket prices. Why are you spending that kind of money to not go out and see the very best product those teams can put on the floor that night? Injuries happen. Rest days happen. That's all part of the process. But clearly it's gotten to the point, again, they see where they have to change something. So regardless of what they come up with, it does look like there's going to be some kind of change. Obviously, I don't think for this year. It's not a vote not expected on this until late May, which would be after this year's lottery selection, which is on May 10th. That's when they draw the ping pong balls and make this decision. So look for this in 2027 and beyond in terms of a different way of doing this. And look, I think it's a smart thing. When you're a league like the NBA and the billions of dollars involved, you have to do something to make sure that the competition remains and they're at the highest that they can be. So that's the story in the NBA. Stay tuned for that. Some ongoings off the court in the association. Okay, a little NFL talk. Pittsburgh Steelers with Ray Fittipaldo is up next here on the Sports IQ.
Life can be full of risks. One thing you shouldn't take a risk with ever is your family's health insurance. If you're self-employed or you now need affordable health insurance, you need to make this free call right now and see how the Health Insurance Helpline can help you get it.
800-448-0828. 800-448-0828. 800-448-0828. That's 800-448-0828.
You're locked in to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
As we continue our conversation about the NFL draft coming up here in a couple of weeks, joined again by our friend Ray Fittipaldo, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Ray, good to see you again. It's got to be strange for you to go into this draft with a new face leading the way for Pittsburgh. I mean, the Steelers change coaches like about once every generation, and so no more Mike Tomlin there. It's a new day in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, after 19 seasons, they exchanged one Mike for another. Now it's Mike McCarthy, who sat out the 2025 season, but of course people know him from his days in Green Bay where he won a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers, and then from 2020 until 2024, won 49 games with the Dallas Cowboys. So he's a guy with 185 career wins, and the Steelers are hoping, which Mike Tomlin couldn't do later in his career, the Steelers are hoping Mike McCarthy can find ways for them to win in the playoffs. Tomlin lost 6 consecutive playoff games to end his career. They hired Mike McCarthy thinking he'd be the leader to lead them to a new era where they had more playoff success.
I want to kind of wrap up the Tomlin era very quickly. It was too bad that happened. And I think that even Mike Tomlin, and you would know this better than the rest of us, had to admit that, at the end of the day, you're chasing championships. And even though he had gotten into the playoffs every year, he wasn't getting it done. And so therefore they had to make a change.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin still has not done an interview since leaving the Steelers.
Oh, okay.
He is apparently going to get hired by one of the TV networks to work in football next season. So we'll maybe get his side of the story, when that happens. But there have been some reports where what he said to the team upon his leaving was, I couldn't get it done anymore. I couldn't lead you. I couldn't get you over the hump to that playoff success. And that was the reason that he stepped out. And listen, Larry, I'm sure it was frustrating. This is a guy who won a Super Bowl in his second season. He got to a second Super Bowl in his fourth season, and then he could just never rediscover that winning formula, really from 2011 on. So, it's a new era in Pittsburgh. We'll see if Mike McCarthy can continue what Mike Tomlin built here. But, yes, it is a new era with McCarthy coming on board.
Yeah, it seems like that really the struggle is also when you and at the NFL, there's so many parts of this, but you got to have a quarterback. And it just felt like once Big Ben retired, it was just a constant scramble trying to find that consistency. under center and that leader of the offense, and they just Steelers could just never find that guy to build around.
And they still don't have that guy. I thought Aaron Rodgers came in and did a nice job last season, led them to 10 wins, but there was really no difference in the playoffs. They couldn't score against a very good Houston Texans team, but that's been the theme for the Steelers really since Roethlisberger retired. Now, Aaron Rodgers is going to make his decision whether he's going to come back for a 22nd NFL season sometime before the draft, so we might have some news soon on that. But I think McCarthy was brought here for a couple of reasons. The Steelers still have a plan to win each and every single season, but McCarthy is an offensive coach. Unlike Tomlin, who had a defensive background, McCarthy has an offensive background, and they really wanted someone to tutor the next quote-unquote franchise quarterback. Now, whether that's Will Howard, who was drafted in the 6th round last season, maybe they draft a quarterback this year, or more likely a quarterback in 2027 when the draft class is expected to be much better. McCarthy is that guy who was hired to bring along that new quarterback who the Steelers hope will be their next Ben Roethlisberger.
And that kind of leads me to my next question. The draft coming up here in a couple of weeks, and as you said, we all know, even casual observers like myself, that this is a weaker quarterback class. I mean, we know that. Yeah. Maybe not a lot of options. Certainly not in day one for the Steelers. Right. What's the feeling? Will they reach into the middle rounds? Is there a quarterback there they have interest in? Free agency period, the start of that kind of has ended, so a lot of guys have already kind of picked their spots. What's that look like? I mean, last year we were talking several times. It was end of June, I think, before Rodgers finally made this decision. I mean, there's no guarantee that he will make a call before the draft, even though he says he will.
I think whether Rodgers or whether he comes back or not, I think they could draft a guy in the 2nd or 3rd round. They have 5 picks in the top 100. So they have their 1st, their 2nd, and they have 3 third-round picks. Carson Beck, they are interested in. Carson Beck was in Pittsburgh for a formal top 30 visit last month. They also did a formal interview with him at the Combine. They also did a formal with Drew Aller at the Combine. Cole Payton from North Dakota State also took a trip to Pittsburgh for a top 30 visit. So you're looking at that 2nd, 3rd round range. And listen, even though some of these guys like Aller probably don't deserve to go in the 2nd round because they, left a lot on the table at Penn State, quarterbacks are always pushed up draft boards. So if a guy has a 3rd round grade, maybe he gets drafted in the 2nd round. That's just the way the NFL works.
Yeah, it's funny. You always have you see where they're projected here, but GMs get antsy, player personnel guys get antsy. Well, what if we don't do this? Then this team may take him, et cetera, kind of thing. Talking with Ray Fittipaldo of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette about the Steelers here as they begin the McCarthy era. They're on the sidelines. What are some other needs right now that the Steelers have going into this draft and heading into OTAs in May?
Yeah, I think their top 3 needs, other than quarterback, obviously, receiver, safety, and an offensive guard. Now, they did fill one of their holes at receiver with the acquisition of Michael Pittman. They got him in a trade a few weeks ago, so he's going to be paired with DK Metcalf on the outside as starters, but they still need better players in their receiving core, and I think they'll take one certainly on the first 2 days of the draft, maybe even in the 1st round. They've been looking at safeties hard, so guys like Dylan Thieneman from Oregon are in play, and also guard. They let Isaac Seumalo walk in free agency. He signed with Arizona, so they have a hole at left guard. Vega Iaone from Penn State is one guy who could be in play at 21. You got some other guys who could be in play at 21 or at 53 in the 2nd round. So I would say guard, safety, and receiver are their likely picks in round 1.
Okay, very good there. The defense, Cam Hayward is still there. He's the gray beard that just keeps getting it done. I'm a big fan of his because I remember his career as a high schooler in Atlanta. I knew his dad, the late Craig Ironhead Hayward. He was a golf buddy of mine. How much does he have in the tank right now in a career that seems destined to be in the Hall of Fame one day?
Yeah, I mean, 2nd team All-Pro again. I mean, he's just continues to defy father time. It's amazing. He signed a new contract over the offseason. So, he's got that old man strength now, right? Like that athleticism early in his career probably isn't there at the same level, but he just knows how to play football. So he's going to anchor that defensive line. They still have TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith as their edge rushers. I think that's a really good group. When you throw in Nick Herbig and Jack Sawyer there, what they have to get figured out, Larry, is the back end, the secondary. They gave up 244 passing yards per game last season. Joey Porter is a good young corner. They're probably going to try to sign him to a second contract, but they got to figure out ways to stop the likes of Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. Teams like that have just killed the Steelers over the years, and they got to find a way to shore up their secondary.
No question. AFC North going through a lot of changes, coaching changes again in Cleveland. Obviously, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, another one that's going to get changed. Where do the Steelers fit right now in that division, and what do they have to do to compete? Again, this is a team that reached the playoffs.
Yeah.
I mean, you got that far. I mean, you're not like you went 4-13 or something, but to reach the hierarchy of the AFC and begin to contend for Super Bowls. Where is the team right now along that spectrum?
Well, for the last 5 years since Roethlisberger retired, you almost go into every season saying they're third because the Bengals have Joe Burrow and the Ravens have Lamar Jackson. And the quarterback play is so important in the NFL. But in many of those years, 2021, 2023, and 2024 and 25, without Ben Roethlisberger, the Steelers made the playoffs. And whether it was because Joe Burrow got injured, Lamar Jackson underperforming, we saw what happened in that regular season finale last year in Pittsburgh. Not that Lamar had a bad game, but the Steelers continue to find ways to beat the Ravens and beat the Bengals. So they're still very formidable in that AFC North mix. The key for them is, can you find a way to be a contender in the AFC at large? They've proven they can be a player in the AFC North. What they haven't done is take that next step and win a playoff game. They are looking for their first playoff victory since 2016. The Steelers never go a decade without winning a playoff game, but they are in the midst of a really bad losing streak right now.
Yeah, you're right. It's when you say it like that, I mean, we know it's been a while, but a full decade. You're right. It's just, you got to look around and go, wait a minute. Something weird is happening here in the universe. I want to talk about the draft coming up. It is actually in Pittsburgh. And I do love the fact the NFL moving this around to different cities, giving different fan bases a chance to experience this, not just in New York. What's being done there in Pittsburgh getting ready for this?
Yeah, well, they're going to stage it on opposite sides of the river. They're going to have, the big stage over by the stadium, and they're going to do a lot of the stuff over there. And then they have big Point State Park on the other side of the river where fans can go through the NFL draft experience. And, Larry, a lot of that is free. So they're expecting between 500 and 700,000 fans to come through Pittsburgh in a couple of weeks. So it's a huge undertaking. I talked to Green Bay's GM about it, Detroit's GM about it at the Combine, because they've done it the last 2 years. It's been a big benefit for those cities, not much for the organizations. I mean, it's still the business of winning, but, the business this brings in for the hotels, the restaurants, just the spotlight on the city. It's a really big deal for Pittsburgh and cities like that, because Green Bay, let's face it, Pittsburgh, they're not going to host Super Bowls, right? This is the next big thing. This is the NFL's second biggest event, and this year it's in Pittsburgh.
But you're right, with hotels, restaurants, things like that, you're actually bringing in potentially more fans than you would for a Super Bowl in terms of that, if you wanted to be a part of that. For people who don't know the area, Ray mentioning Point State Park, that's it's a really cool area there at the Apex where the Allegheny Monongahela become the Ohio. And if you haven't been there, it's definitely should be on your bucket list. It's just one of the great, very of the many points of interest there in Pittsburgh. You and I are talking about in terms of tickets of this, and it's, Super Bowl tickets are pricey. Some stuff is free, but there's also a price if you want to get up close and personal here.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a lot of stuff that's free. The NFL does a great job, but if you want inside access near the stage, some behind the scenes stuff, 2 tickets are going for $3,500 a piece on Friday. I think Thursday likely would be even more than that. So, yeah, it's a tough ticket. We talked about the Super Bowl and all that goes along with it. The NFL draft is starting to get like that. It's one of the premier events, certainly of the NFL's offseason and really of the entire sports season.
Yeah. So, it's funny. While I'm applauding that they are moving this around, they're also making money at this by moving it around too, because you're not doing that in New York. They're not shutting down the streets to bring in 500,000 people. So,
no, they are not.
You're exactly right. Final thought. I want to get to you. I know we'll hopefully talk to you again before the season starts. What's the one thing you feel? We've talked about a lot of things here. We're bringing Mike McCarthy. He's an offensive guy. Got to shore up the defensive backfield. The one thing you'd like to see this team do before they kick off the 2026 season?
Boy, I just say get a dynamic player on defense. We talked about Hayward and Watt, and they also have Jalen Ramsey. All those guys are 30 years old or older. Cam Hayward is, going to turn 37 here next month. They need a dynamic young playmaker on that team, whether it's a safety, maybe it's a linebacker. They got to get young there again. You mentioned all those stars, Watt, Hayward, Ramsey. Larry, they were 26th in the NFL in total defense last year. Only five other teams gave up more yards than the Steelers. So they got to get back to being that Steelers defense of old. And I think they have to, the only way they can do that really is by getting another young playmaker. And I think that's going to be one of their top additions in the draft here in a couple weeks.
Yeah. Okay. We will leave it there. Ray, always good to see you, my friend. Have a great week and enjoy this draft in your home city there. It's got to be really exciting for that as well.
Thanks, Larry. Appreciate it.
All right, man. Thanks, my friend. Appreciate you. Ray Fittipaldo joining us once again. He's the Steelers beat writer, a veteran guy there for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. We always appreciate the time he spends with us, giving us some insight there on the team. Okay, stay here. Quick timeout. Much more to come after this.
I get a lot of calls from people across the country who are suffering from the affliction of IRS tax debt, and that's because I have a remedy. Hi, I'm the tax doctor, and if you're having any of these tax issues, call me right now. My team specializes in helping people over the age of 50 solve their tax problems, and the bigger your tax problem is, the more money you can save. If you owe the IRS money, or you're about to owe the IRS money, or even if you need to file years of unfiled returns, call us right now. Our friendly, highly trained representatives are waiting right now to take your call. Over the years, we've helped thousands of people just like you stop the tax liens, wage garnishments, and harassing phone calls. You don't need to send the IRS a big fat check. We can negotiate a lower amount. That's what we guarantee for you. So call us right now. Call 833-789-3068.
Welcome back here to the show. I want to get into the transfer portal, talking here with producer Tony. And Tony, got a little birdie told me last night that Cam Heide, who is a reserve player for Texas, he got some time and it was kind of one of the center pieces of the Longhorns' run to the Sweet 16 from the first four, and lost to Purdue there in the West Regional. Began his career at Purdue, went to Texas, into the portal, and the word is on the street that he already has received a $2 million offer from a school in the ACC. That's one of those things that's insane. And you and I have been talking about again that while we love that players get a chance to, I don't know if I like free agency and quote unquote amateur sports, but you do get a chance to profit from their name, image, and likeness. But some situations are just, if this is true, and we don't know if it is, if it's even close to true, this is insane, that kind of money.
Right. You're not talking about a star player that you're going to build around. You're talking about a piece that might be able to complement some other players and help you get where you're going. But if you're spending $2 million that way, what do you have left for the rest of your roster? Unless you're just looking for one player to come in and maybe that you can catch lightning in a bottle, which rarely happens, and it's kind of odd to me. I have no problem with name, image, and likeness. I have no problem with these kids getting paid. The money in college basketball and college sports is huge, and it's built because they have the talent and the wherewithal to play these games and play them at a high level. So they deserve to be compensated. Let's not, put our head in the sand and try to pretend this is 1950 anymore and it's all amateurs. We know what these kids are, right? Mm-hmm. But teams have got to be smarter about how they're spending that money. We saw it last year. Larry and I have talked about it with Kentucky. They spent a ton of money. They didn't have much to show for it at the end of the year. There are a number of other teams that spent a ton of money, didn't have nothing to show for it at the end of the year. So, that's where it's incumbent on administrators and boosters to say, we'll give you money, but you better spend it wisely. Because if you keep missing, we ain't funding.
Yeah. And I think we're getting to a point where we're not there yet, but you can kind of begin to see where some teams like Wake Forest said, look, we only have $3 million for our budget. We can't compete with a kid like Quentin Coleman, who then decommits and committed on Friday to Illinois. That's not fair, because they're in the same conference with Duke and North Carolina and Virginia and Clemson and these other schools that do have. Duke has, they don't talk about it. They have one of the largest budgets anywhere. So it's not talked about. But we hear about Kentucky because I think Dick Vitale said it, which he shouldn't have said, but it's out there. Someone told him that clearly, and so that's why he said it. It's one of those that and the money there is insane, because you get some guys now who are going to stay, which here's a good thing, will stay in college because they know they have really no future in the NBA. One player you and I just talked about is going to probably draw about $2.5 million as a starter for a top 10 team next year, where if he goes in the draft, he's probably a second round pick, making maybe $500,000.
Right. So why wouldn't you stay in college? You can continue to improve your game. And if you are that second round pick, maybe making $500,000, how much are you going to play? You might wind up playing 2 minutes a night if you're lucky, or if you're on a really bad team, maybe you're getting 10 minutes a night, but you're not really getting to work on your game as much. So if you can make more money by being in college and staying there, it only helps the college game, for one. Because the last couple of years, Larry, I don't know about you, but the basketball has been better. We have seen more quality basketball being played. I do feel bad for some of the mid-majors with NIL and with the portal, because they lose their key people. We saw it already. One of the kids that just signed with a major program, I think he was from Belmont. So they're losing one of their best players, and he's going to a major. Going to Nebraska to be a bigger piece for them. Those kind of things hurt, but it's part of being in the game. At least Belmont, you're still in the game.
Yeah. And those players who, again, will leave, good players who leave good programs that may not fit elsewhere, that may trickle down to you. And I don't know if a better term, I'm sure, to be used. You're exactly right. A story that we're also watching here that's developed this week is that of Keaton Wagler, the freshman from Illinois. And everyone by now has heard the story. He was, all the scouts missed him. Illinois and Minnesota were his only two Power 5 offers. He goes to Illinois. His family drops him off last summer and says, well, hopefully you don't redshirt and you get a chance to play this year. He winds up being the starting point guard and a consensus All-American. It's one of the craziest stories ever that I've ever experienced. Obviously, everyone has him as a top 6 pick in the NBA draft, but there's now some conversation that his family didn't know if he was ready for high school. They don't think he's ready for for college. Didn't know if he's ready for the pros now. He's also like, maybe I need to bulk up. There's some real conversations that Illinois' coaches are having with Wagler and his family about staying for another year, bypassing being a top 10 pick to work on your body. Here's the thing, because the boozers dominated all the ads, right, in March, that's kind of out the window. He's probably the most recognizable player returning in college basketball. If he returns for sophomore year, the national NIL dollars and marketing opportunities are substantial for an Illinois team that's going to be in everybody's top 10 when the season starts. That's another story that, we saw Cooper Flagg, and there were some reports that Cooper Flagg made like $20 million the 1 year at Duke. Keaton Wagler could be a $10 million guy.
Yeah.
If he stays at Illinois, that's possible.
And there's nothing wrong with that. He gets more experience. He get, like you said, work on his body. Good for the college game, because they've got this great standout player that's still able to play and draw fans and, help a school win. All of those are positives. Look, there's no reason to rush. I even tell my grandson now at 11, don't rush being an adult. Enjoy being a kid. Squeeze every ounce you can out of it, because the headaches, there's a lot of good things that come with being an adult. There are a lot of negatives too.
Yeah.
When you're as old
Yeah.
as you and I are, Larry, we've seen a lot of the negatives.
Yep. And once you cross over, there's no crossing back.
Yep.
All right. Word of advice from a couple of graybeards over here. Take heed. All right. Moment of Oz up next.
Are you paying too much for term life insurance? There's a tremendous price war among the major term life companies. Rates have dropped dramatically in the past few years. For example, a man age 45 non-tobacco user, $1 million of coverage is only $75 per month, level for the next 10 years. Or a man age 50 non-tobacco user can buy $500,000 of coverage for a monthly premium of only $110. Guaranteed not to change for the next 20 years. That's right, level rates for 20 years. And if you're a smoker, we have great rates for you as well. At the Term Lifeline, we specialize in policies of $500,000 and above. So if you're looking for new or replacement term life insurance, call right now for a free quote.
Rates and availability may vary by state. Sample rate quotes are based on preferred non-tobacco underwriting exam required to qualify.
Call 855-826-7932. 855-826-7932. That's 855-826-7932.
Okay, time now for a moment of awe. And it was on this date in 2005, Tiger Woods taking home his fourth green jacket with a one-shot playoff victory over Chris DeMarco. For Woods, his ninth major championship and ended a 2-year Masters drought. Now, this Masters in 2005 also marked the final time that Jack Nicklaus would play in the event, that he won a record 6 times. That record, of course, still stands today. And that's our moment of awe, which hurts me personally because that was also the 1 year in a span of like 7 that I did not cover the Masters. And I missed Tiger winning. I never saw him win a green jacket. Anyway, still hurts me. In fact, my appointment's at 1 o'clock. I'm going to talk. No, just kidding. All right, we got to run. Appreciate you being here as always. Appreciate Stephen Bulpett. We appreciate Ray Fittipaldo. Always appreciate you. Listen, have a great weekend. We're back here on Monday on the Sports IQ. We'll talk to you then.
Thanks for listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith, Monday through Friday. Continue the conversation at Sports IQ LS. We'll see you next time.